Okay, to mount your rack into the truck with the single mount system, you're going to want to figure out exactly where you want it on your truck bed. Once you determine what location you're going to mount it, you want to probably mount it somewhere between 16 and 19 inches high. That's about the range that it sits best in your truck. So we'll go ahead and get the single mount. It's going to sit in this truck probably about in this position here. So what I like to do is go ahead and put a piece of tape down. We're going to use this to center the bracket and also to mark where the holes are going to drill. It's nice to put a second piece of tape. Line it up with that second piece of tape to make sure that the bracket is parallel with the truck bed. And then go ahead and mark the holes. So I recommend threading the bolts into the bracket here that holds onto the nuts that are going to go in between the cab and the truck. What you want to do is just kind of thread those through and then double check where you marked your holes and make sure that it lines up perfectly with those. And in this case they look pretty good. So the next thing you're going to want to do is hit the center of each one of those holes with a punch or a nail or something that'll put a small dent in the middle of each one so that you can drill it perfectly on center. It'll help guide the drill bit. So you want to drill a small drill bit first. So if you have a smaller drill bit, I would recommend just going with something about a 1/16 inch or so, and we'll line that right up into the center. Go ahead and drill the hole. Be careful that you don't drill too deep and hit the other side of the cab. You want to make sure and stop it before it goes all the way through. Just enough to go through the wall of the bed is good enough. Okay, now we want to drill a 3/8 inch hole, so I'll go ahead and drill that hole next, using the little hole as my guide hole. You can feel on the step drill bit, each time you go another step, it pops through, so you can mark it where you want it. And you can look on the step drill bit and look for the 3/8 inch and then mark it so that you stopped right where you wanted to. And we've got holes. If you're uncomfortable with drilling these holes yourself, you can go down to a body shop or any kind of a repair shop and they can drill those holes for you. Take your adhesive strip that came with your bike rack, and basically there's a piece of aluminum that's really thin and it has an adhesive strip on the end of it. So what this is going to do is this is going to allow you to go behind your truck bed and mount up this part. We're going to stick this bracket to the adhesive back and then bend it into shape so I can fish it behind here and get it up against the back of the truck bed. One trick that you want to do, you want to make sure that your bolts are going in nice and smoothly. You don't want them to be hanging up at all on the threads, because once you get it back there, you're going to need to finger tighten it in there. So make sure that you kind of thread it through once and make sure that everything is moving smooth, and you can finger tighten the bolt in and out of the bolts, or in and out of the threads. So the flat side of the receiver should be facing towards me on the inside of the bed. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put the adhesive strip, take the backing off, I'm going to stick it onto this bracket. So with the adhesive strip, the nuts should be facing up towards the aluminum strip, and when I put it in the back, the flat side is facing me. Now I figure I need to get it down here, so I'm going to need to bend it back like that. and estimate about how deep this is. Looks like I might need to bend it about here. We'll see how close I get with that. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and line it up, make sure that the holes line up with each other. Alright, it might take a little bit of adjusting the bar, but once you get it just right, you should be able to see the hole. It might take you a minute to find it and slide it around until you see the nut, and then put the bolt through. And just kind of get it a little bit finger tight on there, and then look for the other bolt and make sure that it goes into that one too. So I've got them both in. Don't take the strip off yet, but make sure that you get both bolts in. And it looks like I've got them both in secure. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove one bolt. For this step, it might be helpful to have another person helping you out. So what you want to do is get that lined up and then ask the person helping you to hold that in place. So you want to squeeze like that and hold it in place so that it doesn't slip. Real tight. Okay. And now I'll thread this one in finger tight. Alright, now I'm going to pull this one back out while they're still holding that one in place. Make sure you put your lock washer on the bolt. Okay, once your single mount is locked in place, you can go ahead and just twist this off, and you can reuse it for your second single mount, or if you only have one single mount installed, then you're all done. And this single mount is now locked in place. The single mount is probably the most solid mount that we sell, and it'll keep the bike rack mounted very sturdy. So the single mount mounts up just like the crossbar. You just put on both of the square rubber spacers. You can either snap them over the bar or slide them on, either way. And then get your rack into position. So the proper position for the square mounts is the smooth side facing up and the smooth side facing back towards you. There's two smooth sides, and then there's two grooved sides. So the deep groove channel, the wide groove channel faces down, smooth side facing up, smooth side facing back, and the tapered ends that look like this should be facing outward. When you've got it all positioned correctly, it has a couple of grooves on the bottom. The deep grooves allow for the nuts that are on the back side of the rack to slide right in. So get everything lined up. And once you've done this once or twice, you kind of get the hang of how to line it up, but it'll slide right on just like that. Now you're ready to put your quick release clamps right on in there and twist them down. Okay, and your single mount is mounted up. Make sure your quick releases are nice and tight, but not too tight. You want them to be secure, but you don't want to over tighten them where you're really having to press them down, because you'll end up bending the metal back here. So you just want to feel a little bit of pressure, and then that's good, as long as they're not floppy loose. You know, you want to have some pressure to it like that, and that is locking your truck very solid. And you're ready to use it, ready to put your bike in. Okay, your rack can be locked onto the single mount just like it can on a crossbar mount. So you just put this through the hole. You might have to loosen up your rack and make sure it lines up with the hole, and then drop it all the way through, lock it back down, and then put your lock on the bottom of the rack lock. And now you're all set. These are the key features in your rack that you want to know about. You have a closing arm here, This is lifting up and down to close the upper clamping arm over your wheel. You also have an adjustment knob here. This fine tunes the pressure on the tire. And then you have your major adjustment back here, which brings the slide closer or further away to account for bigger and smaller wheels. So let's put a bicycle in here. We're just going to put a tire in here for an example. This can be your front or the back of your bicycle. You want to know that when you put the tire in, kind of check it, close the arm down, and see what the position is. So in this case, this is set up pretty close. This is a 26-inch wheel, and we are going to want to apply some pressure to close it. If you have to apply a lot of pressure to close that arm, then it's too tight, so we want to loosen it up. You can loosen it up here with the fine adjustment, and now that's feeling pretty good. You want some firm pressure, but you don't want extreme pressure. You shouldn't have to really put your back into it. You just be able to use some down pressure with your arm, get a nice lock, you're all set. When your bicycle is mounted in properly, you'll have 3 firm points of contact. One is the upper wheel chock, the lower wheel chock, and the guide wheel in the back. When all 3 of those are in contact with the tire, and you also have just a little bit of space in the front, that's an ideal fit for the bike. To adjust all of that, to get it in the right position, you have your major adjustment in the back here, which is a pull pin, and that allows it to slide and snap into various positions. And then you also have your fine adjustment knob on the clamping arm. One feature on the rack is the ability to lower the clamping arm out of the way. Simply pull off the safety pin, slide it out, lower the arm, and you're ready to go. I like to put the safety pin back in the hole for safekeeping until I'm ready to use it again.